So you got you got a hand from Chasers here in New Hampshire, right?
Yeah, I played this hand last week up at Chase's.
Okay.
I don't think it's overly complicated, but it's just sort of interesting. So we're playing. It's a 2-5 game, $1,000 cap, but we're 1150 effective.
Okay. 1150 effective, 1K buy-in, 2.5. Okay.
Right. Okay. So hijack. He's like probably late 20s Asian kid with glasses. He seems to be playing fairly decent.
Mm-hmm.
When I say fairly decent, he's like doesn't limp in first pre-flop and
Yeah.
seems to be playing okay hands.
Yeah.
So he opens the hijack to 20. I'm on the button with pocket queens, and I raise to 65.
Do we know the suits here?
I figured I don't know.
It's not gonna be relevant. All right, I'm gonna put black
It's
queens
not
up here.
irrelevant at all.
All right,
Yeah.
so hijack opens to 20, hero, black queens to 65 on the button. Okay.
Right.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I guess I could go a little bit bigger, considering we're over 200 big blinds deep, but I fall on 65.
Okay.
And
hijack calls?
Yep.
All right.
And then he just calls.
All right, so the pot's like 140 or something like that, right?
Yep, pot's about 140.
Okay.
Flop comes 2-2-2.
2-2-2. All right. So, okay.
So the villain checks, and on a flop like this in a 3-bet pot, I should have all the stronger overpairs for higher full houses. So I decide to take a larger sizing.
Yeah, I like a large sizing here for sure.
Yep.
Different from last
guy.
And
I overbet a little bit to 150.
Okay, so you go 150 here. So on
2-2-2. Full bar.
Yep. Okay.
And he thinks maybe for about 30 seconds or so, and he makes the call.
So let me just, I don't know if you know this, but again, the whole theory about, over betting is that he's got to defend with, well, he has to defend with any pair here, right? And I'm not saying that people are going to fold off pairs. This is such a rare board, because I don't know exactly which ace highs are supposed to be called here. The more common scenarios where you're going to go like really large on a more common flop would be like, say the board comes out like 6 deuce deuce, right? And then I would ask you, is he finding the calls with like ace king? Is he finding the calls with like ace queen with the back door? It's interesting with trips here. Obviously, any pair is a full house, but I would imagine that ace king always continues here. And I'm not exactly sure if there's some sort of like weird flushing effect here on a trip board, like what ace queens are supposed to continue here. Like if he had like ace queen, well, you've got 2 queens in your hand, but you know what I'm saying? Like go down the sort of the line, people might actually start to under defend here a little bit. But okay, so you bet 150 and he calls, so you're probably feeling pretty good because you think he's probably going to 4-bet like kings and aces here, or what?
Right. Yeah. It's a 2-5 game, so
yeah.
I don't see all that much slow playing of aces, almost hardly ever of aces, and kings. I don't even know if it would be considered a slow play in this game. They just might not be. They just be afraid to put in the 4-bet.
Right. By the way, somebody in the live chat said, Bart, I miss the hilltop so much. Loved it. Josh, I got a hilltop story. So my neighbor next to my parents, Josh didn't believe it. I sent him a photo. Our next door neighbor bought one of the cows. They've got one of the hilltop cows in their yard, actually.
That's amazing. It's fantastic.
So you bet 150 and he called. I guess they auctioned a bunch of them off. But all right, so the pot's 440. Yep. All right, let's go to the turn.
Yeah. So pot is like 440.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And the turn is a 5. So 2-2-2-5.
Yep. Okay.
So it's a pretty good card. I think there's a chance you could start piecing off some very small pairs on the flop. Not all the time, but maybe a small amount of the time you should be folding, you'd say your 3s, 4s, 5s or something like that.
To the large sizing, you mean? To your large sizing?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Well, I think it's also too. Well, yeah, it's also one of those things where, it would be interesting. I don't know the answer to that, but I think I remember really, really deep this situation in terms of facing your large bet sizing is that this is akin sometimes when deep from out of position that you would almost, if you're the villains, if you're in your opponent's spot, you would almost rather have ace king to call on the flop than like threes or fours. It's one of those scenarios where because you can improve and you're going to get barreled off. This is why, like, we'll call on flops with like a 5-out draw instead of like a pocket pair that's low, right? Like, if the board comes out, jack, 6, deuce, you very well might rather have like 5, 6, right, than have like sevens in a spot like that. So yeah, it's kind of interesting in that situation. Now you got about 800 behind here, right? What is it? No, about maybe 900 behind, something like that.
So yeah, with two,
950, something like
150
that.
plus
Yeah.
650. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have about, like
Yeah.
950 or something like that.
Yeah.
And, so, with this turn tide, I'm trying to work on like different sizings and things like that.
So you're trying to get the money and you're not concerned at all here for the reasons that we stated, right?
Right. I'm not concerned. So far, I'm not concerned. I think he's going to have, ace, king, pocket eights through jacks, things like that.
Yep. Okay.
And so I go ahead and I put in the bet of 225.
Okay. So you go 225, which is about half the size of the pot. So if he calls the 225, the pot will be right around 900, and you'll have what, like 7-ish, something like that, right?
680, I believe. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting sizing.
So yeah, just around 700.
I wonder if you go. Yeah, I mean, I think I can get on board with it here. I mean, like you said, like I just think that you have the best hand here, just a ton, just through pre-flop.
I mean, there's really nothing. I mean, unless he hit a 5. I mean, if he has ace 2. I mean, there's only one combo.
I mean, here's the thing. Like maybe you go 3/4. Maybe I just try to go for stacks here and I go 3/4 because if he calls, like say he's got like 7s through jacks here and he calls, you still left yourself with a chunk at the end, right? I mean, it's like 900, you've got 680. You might just size up just a tad to like 275, something like that, Yeah,
no, I can definitely get on board with that.
Yeah.
Once people start putting money, they're just going to, all right, I have to go with it.
Yeah. So you bet 225, okay.
So I bet 225, and he's sitting there, and he's taking a while. Probably maybe up to 2 minutes, and I'm looking at him, and at first I thought he was just going to fold, and then to my complete surprise, he just went ahead and he jammed.
Wow. So hijack check jams. So how much is the pot and how much is it for you to call?
So the pot is
665 and he's jamming how much? Like, so after you bet the 225, how much is he jamming total?
So he jammed total for just over 900.
Right. So it's like 15
or just over 800 maybe.
Just over 800. So it's like right around 1,500, like 6 for you to call, something like that.
Right. Yeah. It was
we're off.
I think it was just over 600 for me to call.
150, 375, 4. Yeah, I think it might be 100 more. Just I think it's probably, I think it's probably somewhere around like 1,500, 750 to call, or 1,550, 700 to call. Just coming off of the 1,150. The point is you're getting about 2 to 1. Right. I mean,
exactly.
So yeah, this is really interesting because you haven't, I mean, where this would be a mandatory call would be like if you think your opponent thinks that he's committed, right, with a raise or fold on turn. Like if you were shallower here and you think that he's just going to either go with it or fold, then of course you have to bet and call. But I mean, he could call here and the pot would be, like we said, like 900 with about 680 back, right? So, yeah, that's like 9. I'm just trying to, 15. So it's kind of, it's a little bit crazy for a guy to just think that he needs to go with it with 680 back if he can call the 225, right? I mean, it's still like 2/3 of a pot size bet. So, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't
And like I said, this
stress.
guy seemed to be playing kind of straightforward, and not he wasn't doing anything
If
wild
I
by any
mean,
stretch of the
yeah,
imagination.
I think this is way too much of a deviation to think about folding here. To be perfectly
Yeah.
honest with you, I think what would be more interesting here is like where do you draw the line? Where do you draw the line in terms of like where do you draw the line where you don't take this sizing, and where do you draw the line when you consider bet folding here? Is it like jacks?
Yeah, I think it would probably be jacks, definitely tens. Tens, I would most likely just get rid of and not really think too much about it. Jacks would be the point where I think,
Yeah. I mean, I just,
um, yeah,
if you're, like I said, I think you're getting over 2 to 1 here, like maybe 2 to 2.5 to 1, which means you got to be good 1 out of 3.5 times. And really, I mean, what you're most concerned, I'm not concerned about fives, which is another hand that beats you. I mean, it's just like a
right.
sandbag aces, right? I mean, this guy got aces,
Yeah, it's just
you
the
know?
sandbag aces
Yeah.
or just kings where he was like, you know what, I'm just going to go with the kings now.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think that I just, like I said, like, if it's the absolute nittiest guy in the world and it's a reg. But the funny thing about that, though, is if it's the nittiest guy in the world, you probably don't play the hand this way, though, right? Because you think you probably lose him. You're probably going too thin with queens, right?
Yeah, yeah, and if he's super nitty, like especially if he has aces, I think he's just going to be putting that fourth bet in pre-flop.
Yeah.
These guys don't tend to slow play pre-flop like that, like especially with the big hands. I mean,
Yeah.
they'll limp in pre-flop, but like then if there's a chance to put a four bet in, I think
Yeah.
almost nine times out of 10 they're going to do that.
So, I mean, I would call and I wouldn't love it. What did you do?
Yeah, I actually, he made the bet, and I started trying to talk to him a little bit, and I'm like, "What do you got?" Blah blah blah,
Yeah.
and I was like, you know what, I have to call,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I put in the call,
Yeah.
and of course, yeah, he turned over his pocket aces, so
Ace. Oh, that
yep.
sucks for you. And of course, the problem, I mean, the point, what about people who go, do people like ever excuse me, people go north in that game when the
Oh
stacks
yeah,
get
it
deep?
happens all the time.
So
Yeah,
doesn't,
definitely.
it's just something that happens and it's not really enforced all that much.
Yeah, especially like when you switch tables,
Mm-hmm.
like if you're at the must move, or if you just want to go to a table change.
Oh,
People
they'll let you take your whole stack over for a table
You can
change.
take your whole stack. Yeah, you can
Oh,
take your
that's
whole stack when
interesting.
you table change. So say you have your 1100 in front of you, but you have those 300 extra blacks you bought that are in your pocket.
So you know what the
You
funny,
move over,
so
you just put
Josh,
them right in your rack.
you know the funny, so I remember telling you how I thought it was a little bit peculiar, how I'm like, they wrote the rule that said that the max blind is $10 and that the max buy-in is 1K. I'm kind of scratching my head because that's a very precise rule for New
Mm-hmm.
Hampshire. But then they let you bring your chips over from the main table to another main table, which
Yep.
is bizarre coming from California because it's like a new table, which makes me think they have no fucking clue what's going on. So there's some kind of disconnect there. You know what I mean? Now you can do that shit like in the must move because you're supposed to take your entire stack over,
You
but
can take your whole stack,
for the
right?
most part,
I think it's just because a lot of people. One guy came over to my table from the must move,
yeah.
and he sat down and then took like $500 off a stack, and I didn't luckily someone else was paying attention. I didn't even notice, and he's like, "Did you just take 500 off?" And then he was like, "Yes."
Yeah. But Josh, thanks for the call. I
Hey,
appreciate
no
it.
problem, but.
If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel and check out the coupon code in the description to try out the Crush Live Poker training site for free.